Waiters, what Valentine's Day tragedies have you witnessed? My first day of work on the floor at a country club was the weekend after Valentine's Day. There was a lot of buzz in the back about this adorable family, where every year the mom brought the son out to a nice dinner at the club and the father brought the daughter to the men's section for a dinner, which shows how much pull the guy had since women weren't allowed in that part of the club. It was their Valentine's Day tradition. The kids are both 14 or 15. I'd also been filled in on the gossip that the waitress I replaced had left to have a baby. She was really young, and there was blanket disapproval from the staff and a lot of the members. I'm serving the mom and son in the more upscale dining room, but getting drinks from the bar where the dad and daughter are, so I'm around both groups. I'm bringing a bottle of wine to the mom when a woman walks in with a baby in a carrier and starts handing personalized golf balls out to people as a birth announcement sort of thing. She hands one to the mom at the table and one to the son and walks off when the mom knocked her wine glass to the floor and starts whisper shouting at the son. People are congratulating the new mom and pretending to be friendly, and then each table seems to go perfectly quiet, one after another. I go to the bar to get a new wine glass and see a man duck over to the dad's table and say something to him. The man gets up without saying a word, even to his daughter, and dashes into the men's locker room, leaving her sitting at the table. The whole room goes quiet, but nobody intervenes as the old waitress goes over to the table, hands the girl a golf ball, says a few words I can't hear, and then walks out of the club. The girl starts sobbing. Eventually, the mom seems to have remembered the daughter because the brother comes out and leads her out, and they all leave together. When I was clearing the table, I read the golf ball, which said, waitress plus the dad, baby's first name and dad's last name, and then the date. This is just a sheer level of disrespect from the dad. Man thought he could get away with it too. No, sir. Props for the call out, to be honest. That man needs to be shamed. It's unfortunate, though, that a Valentine's Day tradition like that gets ruined so just forever. Like, there's no way you can even step foot in that restaurant now. And of course, when I say that, I mean the mom and the kids. I don't think the dad's gonna be involved, or at least he shouldn't be. Story 2. I was working at a corporate sports bar that specialized in chicken wings. Valentine's Day, like most days, was insanely busy. As the evening winds down, someone calls in saying they're a professional food critic and demanded to speak to the manager. After a 15-minute call, the manager tells us the critic rated us a B- and said the food was good, but the service sucked. He said he would leave that last part out of his review if we comped his meal and gave him vouchers for free meals in the future. But he refused over and over to say where he worked. Confused, the manager talked to the server, who confirmed that the guy ate alone, shamelessly hit on her, and left a 0 tip. He wrote his phone number on the tip line. Dude wanted free food because the server didn't call him immediately for a date. Story 3. Not wait staff, but I used to work front desk at a hotel. One Valentine's Day I was working the night shift, and this woman comes down with a cut above her eye, looking like she just went a few rounds in the ring with a boxer. Woman starts sobbing and asks us to call the cops, which we do immediately. Turns out this girl's boyfriend just beat the crap out of her during a fight, and from what I could tell, this probably wasn't the first time. So after the cops show up and haul the dude off, my manager offers her a different room on comp, as we need to leave the guy's stuff where it is for him to pick it up the next day. She accepts, and I go up with the woman to help her collect her stuff and move to the next room. There were a bunch of bottles of alcohol in the room, and she donated them to the front desk staff. I got a bottle of Hypnotic and some vodka. Manager got a bottle of Patron. Cherry on top of everything, the dude's wife called later that night, saying someone had stolen his card as he was out of town on a business trip. Never one to defend an abuser, I told her where she could find her husband. Fun times. Now, some people might say OP should have stayed out of it, they should have minded their own business. However, I don't know. I kind of like the idea of just being like, yeah, this person's a piece of crap. Let's see what's coming to him. Story 4. Worked at this Japanese restaurant and had one guy come and order a bunch of sushi to go. Says he's going to surprise his girlfriend. He comes back like 30 minutes later and asks if he could return some of the sushi. Apparently his girlfriend has a seafood allergy and couldn't eat anything he ordered, and she was mad he spent so much money, so she made him come to try and get some of it back. Obviously, we really couldn't give him a refund on the food, but we made him a chicken hibachi on the house, so he could at least have something to take back to her because we felt bad for the guy. I feel like I gotta know how long these two have been dating. If it's like 2 months, maybe this is passable. But as someone with severe allergies, I feel like allergies should come up. But if we're talking like year and a half, this dude should have lost the girlfriend immediately. Like, come on. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt though. Say it was just a month or something. Story 5. Not my story, but a coworker, which happens to be my cousin, told me this story. One day, a guy enters the taco restaurant we worked at. He was a waiter, so he goes to bring the menu to the table. The guy, 20-ish, says he's waiting for someone, so he's gonna wait to order a full meal. But as waiters, we're taught to insist a little more and sell something. So the guy finally orders the cheapest item on the menu, a small carne asada taco, just one. A few hours went by and the dude's date still hasn't arrived. Every 20 minutes or so, he would order another one of these small tacos. Eventually, the owner of the place, who is a really cool dude and has been a friend of my family for years, tells the waiters, "Look at this poor sucker. If the girl never arrives, I'll pay for everything he's ordered myself." So another hour and a half goes by and this dude finally gives up and asks for the check. He looked pretty sad, so as a waiter of his age, my cousin told him everything he consumed was on the house. He smiled and left good tips anyway. Stay strong, guys or gals. If she/he has you waiting that long, they're not worth it anyway. Story 6. Not a waiter, but a story worth sharing nonetheless. A friend of mine went on a date with this girl once or twice, and then invited her to a nice Valentine date as well. He had everything set up perfectly. He called 4 times, texted her several times, and waited for too long. Eventually, after finishing half of the wine bottle by himself, smoking a pack of cigarettes and looking like garbage from stress, disappointment being played, sweating and waiting, he went home. The girl said that she had an emergency and she didn't receive any of the texts or calls. However, in a photo posted on Instagram during Valentine's Day, she was shown to have gone out to a concert, probably with another guy, so she was clearly lying about it. Frickin' brutal. I just can't imagine the level of disrespect you have for someone to not answer them at the very least. To say you're going to show up for something and then never tell them you're not going to. And then still expect to have that person as an option, as I'm sure she was thinking by trying to lie to him. Get over yourself. Have some respect for people. Story 7. Older woman, probably in her upper 90s with her teenaged grandson at a semi-classy restaurant. She was dressed to the nines, and the grandson was in a nice button-up and dress slacks. As they got seated at their table, the grandson placed a framed photo of what my friend assumed was the boy's grandfather and the husband of the older woman. Found out it would have been their 70th wedding anniversary, but he passed away suddenly but peacefully a few months back. The grandfather has always wanted to take her to a nice restaurant but never had the time or money to do it. So the grandson saved up his pay from the last couple of months and even got some donations from other relatives and took her to the restaurant. They ate dinner, remembering all the good times with the man. They had my friend take a picture and she did. They tipped my friend very well. By happenstance, my friend ran into the same young man some weeks later to find out that the grandmother had passed away a few days after that night, peacefully in her sleep holding a photo of her beloved husband. He was so happy he could make that night special for her. Said it was the only day he saw her smile since his grandfather passed away. He got the picture they took at the restaurant printed in wallet size and carried it around with him. As much as I saw that last part coming because it's common for older people in grief, it still hits super hard. This one is incredibly touching. It's kind of a tragedy, but also not really. It's one of those beautiful, bittersweet moments of life. A moment that I'm sure felt like almost one of the greatest things ever with that creeping undertone of sadness. If my voice is breaking up, I was affected. What can I say? This is why people are better than AI for reading these stories, by the way. Anyway, moving on. Story 8. I was hosting at a really busy brunch place and Valentine's Day was one of our busiest days. We had a full wait list with tons of people in the lobby when this dude walks in with this huge teddy bear and a bouquet of roses. He said he wanted to drop them off for my coworker, so I let her know he was there, but understandably she was running around, so it took a bit. While waiting, a bunch of folks waiting for tables complimented him on how sweet he was to do that for his girlfriend and how jealous they were. It was kind of cute. When my coworker finally was able to come up to the front, there were a lot of awe and such. Again, we were slammed, so she ran back after taking the items and it was back to work for all of us. When it died down, I asked her how long she was dating her boyfriend for, and she replied, "He's not my boyfriend, he was the salesman where I bought my car, and I think he got my workplace from the paperwork." So, that was pretty frickin' disturbing. Story 9. A couple came into my Hibachi restaurant since it was the fanciest place in town. A young woman was all decked out in a spangly, light blue satin cocktail gown. He was in a suit and tie. They wanted to sit at the grill for the show, but still ordered a ton of sushi and drinks, so their section of table was extremely full of dishes. I'm talking multiple mixed drinks and waters for both of them, soup and salad bowls for both of them, appetizer plates, sushi plates, soy sauce trays, and their entree plates. The Hibachi seats 12, and it's basically a bar ledge around the grill for a table, and we were slammed, so there was no extra room. I barely managed to talk them into letting me take the empty dishes as they were finished with them, but it hardly helped. The chef starts his show and the dude is super into it, demanding to be included. So the chef flicks a shrimp at him. In an effort to show off and catch it in his mouth, he manages to miss it completely and crashes into the table, sending food, drinks, and a full bottle of soy sauce on a plate right into his date's pale blue satin-covered lap, and everywhere else. It was a complete crap show. She was screaming and crying, and the other couples that had had their meals ruined were all upset. He's blaming me. The busboys and I were just trying to clean up and salvage what we could of the service. It was awful. Story 10. Serving at a touristy restaurant about 5 years back. Had a call for a reservation, including myself and my service dog. Okay, no problem. I actually like one-person reservations, even on Valentine's. They're usually quite nice and just want to be treated well despite taking up a table meant for 4 people. I agree to take it while all the other servers are complaining about the reservation only being for 1. Anyway, hours later, in walks this drop-dead, gorgeous woman with a full-grown man in a dog mask and a full leather suit, complete with a leather tail, being led on all 4s behind her. She nonchalantly gives her name, it's on the reservation list, and so the hostess just leads her to the table. I walked up to them being super professional. I was so stoned that it wasn't really fazing me, and this woman just orders like $200 worth of random appetizers, entrees, and a bottle of higher-end Merlot. Of course there were stares, and of course other tables inquired and or complained. But he was such a well-behaved, service dog, and I never mentioned it or asked questions or stared. I kid you not. That lady tipped me 100% in cash with a twinkle in her eye as she left. 10 out of 10 would wait on them again. Not really a disaster in the traditional sense, but disaster nonetheless. Look, I don't know where I fall on this. On one hand, she sounds great, so kind, lots of tipping for the service, great, cool. On the other, girl, that's really weird. That's really weird. I can just imagine the parents shielding their children's eyes. A lot of questions were asked that night. Questions that do not have answers. Story 11. Not a waiter. This happened years ago when I was 11 or 12. Mom and Dad's marriage had been struggling for years. This was right before they divorced. Mom wanted to take me and Dad to a nice restaurant that opened up in town that was having a Valentine's dinner special with all-you-can-eat crab legs. My mom loves crab legs and can easily clean out a joint, and that's exactly what she did. My dad basically blew off the dinner to go get drunk with friends, and that upset my mom, obviously. She screamed at him on the phone and said, "Screw you, don't come to dinner, but we would still be going out." My mom was eating her anger, plate after plate of crab legs. She was eventually cut off from the manager. My mom, of course, whined about it being all you can eat and was told that they were about to run out and still had to serve others. She wasn't too happy about that. I just sat there cringing the whole time. Okay, respectfully though, a large part of me is on the mom's side here. Like, OP's dad, what are you doing? Just go out with your wife on Valentine's Day. It sounds so easy. She just wants crab legs, dude. Instead, you gotta go out and get hammered at a bar with your friends. That's so weird on Valentine's Day, man. It's one day, just schedule it off. You can do better than this. Story 12. I'm not a server, but I work in the kitchen and see what happens in the dining area. Plus, I speak to the servers every few minutes as they take out food, etc. Had a couple come in on Valentine's Day. Our restaurant sits about 50 people and we were booked for the night. So much so that we had tables capped at 1 hour before asking them to leave. About 2.5 hours before closing, the couple comes in. Everything seems normal and they act like any other customers. They order food, have their starters, and then mains. However, halfway through their main, they start having an argument and causing a scene. One of the waiters asked them if they could be a little more respectful towards other customers. They relaxed for a bit and honestly seemed embarrassed about the whole situation. This is where it gets interesting. About 5 minutes later, the guy just gets up and in complete silence walks out the front entrance. The woman stays there and completes her meal. This is about an hour and 45 minutes before closing time. After about 20 minutes of staring at an empty chair, the woman asks for the bill. The guy who left never came back. The problem was the woman didn't have her wallet or her phone, and the guy drove there, so no car either. After not being able to pay, she asked us to wait until her partner returned. We waited for about 30 minutes before we had no other choice but to call the police. The police came, and after about 10 minutes, they escorted her out of the restaurant. Our manager felt awful about the situation and told the woman that she could return and pay the next day. I assume the police drove her home, and as promised, she returned the next day and paid the bill. She apologized and left. Honestly, don't really know what happened between the two or why they were arguing, but that guy pulled a really scumbag move and absolutely humiliated the poor woman. Story 13. I waited tables at the nicest restaurant in a smaller town. Classic French, white tablecloths. I have a lot of Valentine's nightmare stories. The worst one was this guy who kept calling trying to make everything perfect for his date and said he was going to propose. He wanted the perfect table and kept coming up with ideas on how we could help him do it. He went through every cliche, like ringing the champagne glass and stuff like that. Our management refused and said we didn't do stuff like that for liability reasons. The day comes and we are packed. The couple in question is in the best spot in the back of the restaurant. Unbeknownst to us, he hires a violinist who arrives, and they start playing walking towards their table. You could see every couple's horror and then relief as the violinists passed their table. The violinist arrives at the couple's table and the guy drops to his knee and proposes. His date looks shocked and then yells, "Are you kidding me? This is our third date!" She then runs out of the restaurant and the guy just sits down looking shocked and dejected. The owner just walks up to him and tells him to leave and to not worry about the bill. Plot twist, this guy does this all the time for free meals. Wouldn't that be like the biggest brain thing though? Except for the times where it doesn't work, because then you pay for the violinists and you still have to pay for the meal. Seriously though, third date dude? Come on. Like, I don't know what you expected. This is not a Hallmark movie. This isn't a Disney movie. Hallmark movies don't even do that. Hallmark movies give it a few more dates at least. Story 14. Not a server, I work for DoorDash. I occasionally get deliveries that are surprises. Usually a guy having lunch delivered to his girlfriend at her job. I usually love these, and they're my favorite to do. The girl always looks so happy, and I sometimes get double tips because the guy will tip on the app and the girl will tip me in person because she's just so happy. But this one time, Valentine's Day last year. I love working on Valentine's Day because it's always busy, and I get lots of happy couple food deliveries. It was around 1 p.m., and I was delivering food to who I thought was a man at his job. We'll call him Jeff. So I pull up to the job, and it's a nursing home. I enter and immediately realize something bad is going on. Someone died. There's people crying everywhere and an ambulance outside, pretty much complete chaos. I go to the front desk and awkwardly say, "I have a delivery for Jeff." The front desk woman says, "No, Jeff works there," and then leaves immediately. So I'm running around with my expensive food, erratically asking people if they know where Jeff is. Finally, I get a hold of the guy on the phone, and he's like, "Oh, it's for my girlfriend Katie." "Oh, thanks for not telling me, dude." I find Katie, and she's standing next to the dead body. I walk up to her with an awkward smile and tell her I have a Valentine's delivery for her from Jeff. She goes bonkers, and she's already crying. She says she's already eaten lunch, and why would Jeff not just tell her? Basically yelling at me like it was my fault. At this point, I've been there around 30 minutes. She says that it was inappropriate for me to walk around the nursing home looking for her. I've done this tons of times with no issues, and staff told me to go find her. She starts yelling more that she's mad at Jeff and I've broken the rules, etc., etc. I finally managed to get out. Later find out Jeff called and had my $10 tip removed. So I saw a dead body, got yelled at for 15 minutes, wasted almost an hour of work time, all for my crappy $2 delivery fee. Story 15. I was a hostess for a few years. Never really had any bad Valentine's disasters except for this one incident. It was a high-end restaurant that was always busy, and Valentine's Day was worse than usual. We took reservations and had a pretty lengthy wait. A middle-aged couple came in with a reservation, and were seated at a table for two in the bar area. We had a round table in the entryway of the restaurant where the hostess stand was. The bar was pretty full, so a lot of people on the waitlist were hanging in the lobby. I'm not exactly sure what set the couple off or how it started, but the fight escalated away from the table and to the lobby, where the woman physically chased the man around the table over and over again while screaming and calling him cheese dong. My manager and I just stood there shocked and wide-eyed, along with all of the other customers. She stormed off and left. He hung around and paid the check. Told the manager that she had found cigarettes in his car and accused him of cheating, but he said he had just taken up smoking again. Cheese dong is a wild roast. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. A bit suspicious from the guy, I'll admit, but it's entirely possible he just took up smoking again. The woman seems a bit presumptuous, but sometimes when that happens, there's also precedent set to make it that way, so this story, I don't really know what's going on, and I don't think anyone will. Except for those two. Or maybe, hey, even just him. Either way, these were some spicy stories. Some sad, some funny, some angering. A good mix overall, I'd say. So, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I also hope you have a wonderful day or night. And I'll see you in the next one.